Merry Christmas, everyone. Boy, I'm glad you have a moment to spend with me. When we're doing a normal Christmas visit, it's very quick, and the children come and then we visit real quickly. We learn a little bit about what they might want, and then they're gone. And we don't get a chance to talk very much about Christmas. And I'd like to take this moment, and if you have a few minutes to ride along with us, maybe you could learn something, and I can try to answer some of the questions that visitors have. First of all, we're really glad if you're in the Gatlinburg or the Smoky Mountain area viewing this. We appreciate you being here, and we hope you're enjoying your holiday. If, however, you're watching us on the World Wide Web, that wonderful technology that Santa has trouble keeping up with, I hope you enjoy the holidays wherever you are. So when I started this, it was Merry Christmas, and that's what Santa is about. Santa is a Christmas tradition. And Santa is originally called Nicholas, and many of you know of Saint Nick and other names in other countries around the world. I was born in the late 300s AD, and I was born with parents who were wealthy merchants at the time, and it was in the Mediterranean area in a land that's now Turkey, but it was Aramea, in a little town called Patara. And unfortunately, in those days, and this is important to remember because sometimes we think everything today is so bad, but back then, the flu could come through a village or a community or a whole country and kill millions of people, and it was awful. I lost my parents that way when I was a young teenager. So at that time, to get an education, the church was really an option, or the Roman Empire. And being Christian, the Roman Empire wasn't a choice for me. And I had an uncle who was a priest, a monk actually, and I went to the monastery and became a priest, and that's where I got my early education. After that, I was a priest in my little town, and when I got old enough and got my priesthood, I gained access to the money that my folks had had. And trying to be a good Christian and trying to follow the teachings of Jesus. Now, people sometimes get confused. Santa is not trying to replace Jesus. The holiday is not about Santa. It is Christ's Mass, and it's about Christmas. And I have gotten the reputation that I have earned over all these years by trying to be a good Christian. And I was trying to use the wealth that I had at the time to enrich those around me that needed it. I mean, that's how we were taught to share. And I would give parents money for a child's needs, but the parent didn't always see the need the same way. Like, those versions of the lottery tickets, the money went away. So I changed, and I started anonymously giving gifts directly to the recipient. And some of the most famous early ones, and I still recall it to this day, is back then, and it's another point about how much better things are now than they were hundreds of years ago, that a woman could not get married unless her family had enough money to pay a dowry for a husband to take her. And an old friend of my family's had 3 daughters and was very poor, and the daughters were going to end up being sold into servitude if they did not have a dowry. So when the first daughter became of age, I took a small sack of coins and threw it through the window into their room in the evening. And the story is, and how stories sometimes go, but at the time they didn't have a lot. Nobody had a lot. And the stockings were hung by the fireplace with care, not so that St. Nicholas would be there, but because that's the only pair they had, and you hung them by the fire at night so they'd be dry in the morning because you put them on again. The bag of coins landed in the stocking, and that started that tradition. But she got her dowry, she got married. When the second daughter became of age, we did the same thing. When the third daughter became of age, the father was bound and determined to catch whoever was their benefactor. And he stayed up and he caught me in the act. I promised, from him, I gained the promise to keep my identity secret. Well, obviously that hasn't happened because many people have heard that story. But it was one of those things that I felt good in the giving, and it did good for others. And that was part of the Christian tradition. Later on, in a nearby town called Myra, which was a seaport on the Mediterranean, I was promoted to a bishop in the church. And at that time, the bishop gave me the opportunity to travel more widely. I traveled around the Mediterranean. I was on a ship with some sailors, and it was a merchant vessel, and the seas were very rough, and they all wanted to pray. So I got everybody together. We prayed for calm seas, and we got calm seas. And I have become the patron saint of sailors. There was another time on a footpath on a trail through another little village. There was a couple of soldiers surrounded by villagers, and they were being accused of some terrible crimes, of assaulting a young lady and of actually killing someone else. And I defended the soldiers. It turns out they were not guilty. And that's part of that Christian belief of caring for others, looking for the truth in things. And that story carried widely, with the sailors and the military both thinking that I was doing a wonderful thing. My reputation spread throughout Europe. When we got to other countries, people tend to adopt their stories to fit their culture and their style. I did not wear fur in the Mediterranean. That would have been way too warm. But as I got to the Nordic countries, fur was perfectly acceptable. I did a lot of my travels on foot in the Mediterranean, but as I got up into Italy, I had a little donkey that would help me. And there's still stories about him going around. His name was Dominic. So in the further north countries, we ran into this most wonderful animal who people counted on for their very existence every day of the year, and that was a reindeer. And the reindeer was so versatile, and they were such good-spirited animals that I started using them exclusively for my travels. And that's how the reindeer came into part of the story here. As time travels and the culture changes, Amsterdam, which was Holland, the Netherlands, had traditions of the sock, or the little shoe outside the front door. Italy did that too. And Santa, well, it wasn't Santa so much, it was Sinterklaas. But Sinterklaas and St. Nicholas would come on the Feast of St. Nicholas, which was December 6th, and give gifts to the children then. And December 6th, the Feast of St. Nicholas, was a celebration for all the things that had been attributed to the works of Santa over the years. And if the children were good, they would get a little candy, a little treat in their shoe. Not so good, switches, some little straw or hay. And that tradition went on and on. As Christmas moved off of St. Nicholas Day, although the Christ Mass always was where it was, Santa was not part of that celebration. Over the centuries, they've merged closer and closer together, and now it's part of the Christmas tradition that we all enjoy. And I do want everyone to remember that Christ Mass is for Christmas. It is a Christian holiday. Those of you who may not celebrate or have those same beliefs, Santa loves you as well. We're inclusive, and we want you to enjoy the holiday however you celebrate it. And it is the birth of the new year, the birth of the new season, and hope for the future. And so I want to once again wish all of you a very Merry Christmas. Share with others, enjoy the holiday, and God bless us, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to share that little bit of a story. The story is actually much, much longer. There's a lot more details, and there is information available on the web. Or, if there's time, you might like to stop out and see me in my summer home. That's here in Gatlinburg. It's Santa's Closet. It's on Route 321, just about 3 miles north of town, across the street from McDonald's. And if there's time, I'd love to share more of that with you. I'd love to hear your Christmas wish and dreams, and maybe give you a candy cane. I have some right here.